We have a welcome from the CEO of Denver Botanic Gardens, Brian Boyd. So please give a warm welcome.
This is so exciting. Good morning. It's really a pleasure to have you in the Frere Newman Center as part of the Denver Botanic Gardens. And if you have, how many of you have never been in here before? Well, most of you. Well, welcome. This is really about community. Everything about this building was to bring together art, science, and education in a way that really celebrates the interconnection between all three of them. And so we have 6 classrooms downstairs, we have labs upstairs, we have the herbaria downstairs, we tripled the size of that. We now have over 100,000 accessions in the herbaria. The library is something that we're really proud of, where people can go and study. We tripled the size of that as well when we moved into this building. We have 3 art galleries, and I hope that when you have a break, you'll take a turn through a couple of these. If you just want a smile on your face, we have a celebration of the art from the Golden Books, if you remember those as a kid. See, you'll just walk through and smile. It's so wonderful. But this is really an important place that you're in right now, because we now host everything from film festivals to gatherings and conferences like this. We've had performances in here about idea work, we've had lecturers, we've had every kind of community gathering you can think of, and that's really what the Gardens is all about now. We think that our mission is best served by partnerships. We have 186 community partners now throughout the entire region, and it's really focused on what we can do together to make the world a better place. I give a lot of talks, and it's always titled How the Gardens Are Changing the World, and the point at the end is that we all need to take responsibility for changing the world for the better. And Lord knows the world needs changing right now. It's a very, very tough time. So thinking about partnerships, you think about pollinators and plants. There's a beautiful symbolism in that. There's a reality in that. And it's something that we have to protect. The Gardens is very devoted to extending our sustainable landscape program to cities and counties all over the state of Colorado, so that we begin to plant more appropriate plants that sustain pollinators and life and habitat. That's something that you'll be seeing more about in the next year, because we're going to really rev it up. We have a lot of street medians and health strips and pocket parks and corporate landscapes that are very, very different now because of our engagement with them, because we believe it's essential to sustaining life in our community. So I'll end with this, and it's a big thank you to all of you. One of my favorite quotes that I've ever heard was someone who said, "I've always been an optimist, but every now and then I need a little bit of evidence." And you are providing the evidence. You're the ones that are coming together to talk about how we can do better as a society, and that's just going to fill the Gardens with great joy today. So hope it's a great experience, and I'll turn it back to Adrian. Thank you.
Wow, that was an awesome welcome to the Denver Botanic Gardens. And there was a couple little snippets in there that I thought was really good, right? That one, collaboration is really key, right, to having good impacts within your communities, and that you need a meeting space, right? The importance of this room is a meeting space for collaborating on a shared passion around pollinators, right? And so this summit really kind of emboldened, is what it's all about. Sorry, I'm going to be winging it this morning, so I'll go ahead and apologize that I have a lot of slides to cover in a short period of time, so please bear with me. And if anybody has anything to say about your slide that I put in here, feel free and grab my attention. But I always like to start out this summit by reiterating what the Colorado Pollinator Network is, right? Because we are kind of a loose association of a whole bunch of different organizations, all devoted to working collaboratively to help conserve, protect, and create pollinator habitat across Colorado, while educating people about how we can best do that, right? And so it allows for a whole bunch of different organizations and individuals, a lot of you who are probably new this year, throughout the state, to collaborate to have positive impacts on pollinator communities and health, right? And so there's a lot of ways that we do that, but what I usually like to do is to show you some examples of what different organizations within our group are doing. And so you already heard some about what the Denver Botanic Gardens have been doing. continuing in with their missions of educating children as well as adults. And so, as far as I know, you have free reign of the grounds today, right? You should get out and explore in the breaks or at lunch the beauty of the Denver Botanic Gardens. And highly encourage you to walk the grounds because you may still see pollinators today. I did last year. They've, been doing a whole bunch of new work on habitat for pollinators and installing new habitat gardens, focusing on sustainable landscapes. Let's see. I'm going to move quick through this for time's sake. And they're also engaged in a lot of horticultural research. They have Chapel Farms and the CSU Spur campus where they're evaluating trial seed mixes, working with a whole bunch of graduate students around the Denver metropolitan area. I think this is Plant Select, which, anybody ever heard of this program before? It's a really cool program, looking to see for specific varieties of plants that we use here in our region, what value they are for pollinators. And so you'll hear more about how we can determine what plants are valuable for pollinators later on from our keynote. And also doing basic and fundamental research on how we can conserve plants and pollinators through taking graduate students and engaging with undergraduates at research institutions around. And you heard about this from Amy earlier. We had a Big Day of Bug events this past year. We're going to have another one in 2024. So if you want to come to the gardens and engage with folks that are doing that work here while exploring the diversity of pollinators right here at the Denver Botanic Gardens, put this date on your calendar for 2024. CSU Extension is another partner of our group. They've been doing a lot. Big news from Native Bee Watch. Anybody a member of Native Bee Watch? Northern Colorado Community Science Program to monitor native bees. Got funding to expand their program, right? So if you want to help contribute to data collecting on where pollinators occur across our state, definitely check it out. Weld County CSU Extension has also been developing pollinator kits and continue to distribute those for educational and outreach activities. Butterfly Pavilion does tons of stuff. Oh man, can I even get through this? From establishing pollinator districts in several of our municipalities to working on restoration and across a whole bunch of different habitats, including urban and agriculture, to engaging across diverse audiences, all the way from children to senior living communities, right? And so trying to broaden the impact that they have within their communities. People and Pollinators Action Network is a big component of this that drives the Pollinator Network. They do a lot of policy initiatives. So they launched a habitat fund from the sales of our state license plates, and they've awarded grants as a result of that habitat fund. They worked with county municipal governments on new resolutions concerning pollinators. They've also done some outreach as part of our Department of Natural Resources Native Pollinating Insect Health Study. And they actually worked with partners to pass State Bill 23-266. I'm not a policy expert. Hopefully I get that right. Which designates neonics as a limited use, right? So I think we can all agree that toxins in our environment aren't necessarily good. So if we use them, better make sure that who's using them is well trained. Let's see. City of Boulder has a bunch of community partners. They've been doing a lot of stuff. They had a really collaborative art installation at the Boulder Library that engaged tons of people, not just artists, but the general public, educators, engaging tons of people within the community, trying to increase our impact beyond just us doing research or us studying or land management, but also to bring in people from diverse audiences who can share that same interest and fascination in pollinators through art and education. We also ran the Boulder Bee Festival, had a lot of attendees there, which engaged a lot of kids and other community members through like fun outreach games and lots of learning experiences. They've also run the second year of their Pollinator Advocates program, which actually trains people within the community to put in native pollinator habitat. And I've engaged with these from the University of Colorado, so through the Museum of Natural History, the Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology, through our Office of Outreach Engagement, have a new program that will be going into place this year to help them make sure they're bringing the best science on how we conserve our pollinators, and that we as scientists can help increase the impact by reaching more diverse audiences, especially those in most need. Because those communities in most need are usually the ones that are suffering the worst effects of human environmental change. And so we're not the only ones growing and having impact. I showed this in 2020 at this summit, which is just iNaturalist records for Colorado and how many observations we had there in 2020. By 2022, we had 3 times more users. In 2 years, after we brought this to the summit and started engaging with the communities, 3 times as many people. This is only bee data, Anthophylla, the bees. 4 times more records in just 2 years. By 2023, we're still growing. Just from last year, we've got nearly 1/3 more users and over 1/3 more records for the state, right? But you know what I find really cool? That right there, 1,000 identifiers. Why is that so cool? Because it means you guys and other people using this app are not just contributing photos and data, but you're learning and you're engaging with the community, right? That's pretty cool, and I think that's a big impact. And if you're curious about who the top people are in terms of posting photos of bees, there we go. I don't know Room Philly right off. I mean, Pam, that's not a big shot. You got a huge book over there from Pam's work on pollinators. I think she's maybe a little bit of a cheat there. Like, yeah. And this has changed, of course. So Pam's still holding a solid second spot here just on Colorado bees. Blaze Claw, if anybody here is Blaze Claw, you've moved up into number 3. What about me? I study bees for a living. Shouldn't I be on here? Let's see. Oh, there I am. What, 66? Gosh, y'all are whooping me. But, this was last year's summit, and our whole goal last year was about growing, progressing, and transforming our individual conservation actions to have more collective impact. But a part of growing is change and loss. And so when things change, it's hard. And we've lost some good people this year. And I'm sure you all have lost people as well. One of the ones that was important to the network was Paul. He was a pretty tremendous entomologist. He was also a fellow at the Entomological Society of America. You can see him up there looking at his picture in 2018. And he mostly studied moths, but in his later years got into bees, and he got into bees hard. I have his data, thousands of records of bumblebees, and bumblebees which are of conservation concern, and their host plant records. He passed away this past winter, and his biggest concern was that his data would be used for something that had impact. So me and some of our collaborators at CSU trying to figure out how best to use that data to do just that. And one of the things that made him unique was the fact that he's so engaged with our group. And so just a big thank you to Paul. I can't do him justice in this little brief intro, but feel free in the program to follow the link and find more about all of his impacts in his illustrious career. So I figured I'd take just a moment and revisit our theme for this year, which is promoting and cultivating diversity in pollinator conservation. And to just mention that this was purposely put in there fairly vaguely, promoting, cultivating diversity, right? We all try to cultivate diversity in our individual conservation actions, right? We try to plant native plants to attract native bees and to have more diverse pollinators within our communities. But it's also important to recognize that the best way to do that is by engaging with diverse audiences and taking advantage of the diverse expertise that comes from our own communities. And I'd like to acknowledge that, we need help with this, right? We have been limited in our ability to reach out to more diverse audiences over the years. And so if you want to help, I would highly recommend that you reach out to us in our organization to help us reach those people who need our help and who can provide help to us to help us achieve our shared conservation goals. So, just a quick schedule at a glance so you know what to expect today. We've gotten to our intro. We're going to have a quick review over species of concern from the state. We'll have a really engaging keynote, which I think you will find really, really interesting about creating biodiverse pollinator habitats. We're going to spend the morning session really focusing on the diversity of pollinators. So you're going to hear about a lot of our lesser known things like flies and wasps and moths. And then can't forget lunch. We'll have lunch down the hall in Mitchell Hall. And then feel free and talk to us, engage with us throughout. Whenever you catch us in the hallway, say, hey, here's something really cool I saw, or something cool that I did and I'd like to bring to your attention. That's the whole point of this summit, is to network and engage within the community. And in the afternoon, we'll focus on having more diverse impacts and more diverse communities in pollinator conservation. So we'll have a working roundtable discussion about innovation and pollinator impacts and conservation. And then we'll give you a sneak peek of the Department of Natural Resources Native Pollinating Insects Health Study, which is a statewide review of pollinators across the state. And then we'll end with some closing remarks. So I want to end with a plug of our collaborative exploration meeting. Anybody wants to snap a picture of this? If you want to have impact on this summit in particular, right? We've all been so busy. You may have noticed that we were a little late getting emails out to the group this year. And I am kind of winging it up here because we've been really, really quick. Oh yeah, please too, find a seat. There's lots of open seats. Don't feel the need to stand around on the edge. And so this collaborative exploration meeting will be on Friday from 9 to 11 at the Butterfly Pavilion. So if you want to come to the Butterfly Pavilion, get your voices heard. Tell us what's important to you. Tell us if you'd like to help or engage with our group. Help us put on the summit in the future. We'd love to have you. So a big shout out to our sponsors. We wouldn't be able to put this summit on without their financial and other support. And we have an increasingly growing team of supporters for the summit itself. So the network is made of a whole bunch of different organizations, and I'd like to thank everybody who helped put this together. So I think that's everything I've got for this slide. If y'all want to shuffle in, I'll switch over to our first speaker.